Hey guys, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm excited to have Amy Berger on my show again. Amy has a couple new books in the works, and we're going to dive into them a little bit today. If you haven't followed Amy before, she's on YouTube. She's the owner, founder of Tuit Nutrition, so you can find her on tuitnutrition.com, on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. And her new book we're going to talk about today is called The Stall Slayer. And she's got other ones and a new one coming out this fall that is a podcast we'll record later on. But today we're going to just dive into, what I've been researching a lot about lately is what causes you to not be able to lose weight. You're struggling to have that fat come off and you're trying to do everything that you think is right, and there's something just off balance, something not working. And I've been doing a lot of blog writing about that. And I noticed Amy had a new book out, and I really want to talk about this because I think it's a common struggle for a lot of us that, we're exercising or we're eating right, but we maybe are not eating right for you. You are a unique individual, and we all have different genetics. Your microbiome balances are different. Your ancestry background, your blood sugar regulation, your chronic stressors. Every stress response is a blood sugar response. So there's a lot of things that go into account of figuring out what to eat. And you can't just say, everyone eat this way. Everyone should eat real food, but what ratio of carbs, fat, and protein of real food, organic, non-GMO foods are right for you is an individual thing. And that's what we do when we do health coaching, is figure out what is your ideal diet. Do a food sensitivity lab test, measure your blood sugar levels, look at your DNA fit report, look at your strategy. There's a lot that goes into it, as well as FDN. We like to use metabolic typing or use slow or fast oxidizer. So everybody's different. So there's going to be challenges for some people to lose weight, and others can follow the same program and lose weight quickly. So you can't compare yourself. As I posted the other day, comparison is the thief of joy. And I really love that. I got that in yoga. We've been doing Travis Elliott yoga, and that is something that I have to remind myself of daily when you're starting to look at social media, or if I'm trying to build my brand and look at, oh, this person has 150,000 followers, what does she do? And trying to figure out how to create impact and inspire other people to really be healthy on the inside and out. Being a health coach, I have to just follow my own purpose and not compare myself to other people. Because again, same thing with what we eat. To be healthy and to burn fat, we need to work on our own unique protocol. Okay, so Amy, if you don't know, has a huge background. She's got many different degrees, and she's actually was in the U.S. Air Force. She's a veteran, and she's a certified nutrition specialist who specializes in helping people do keto without the crazy. She's got a master's degree in human nutrition and writes about a wide range of health and nutrition related topics, such as insulin, metabolism, weight loss, diabetes, thyroid function, and more. She's presented internationally on these issues and is the author of many different books I'll put in the show notes. So make sure you look in the show notes so you can click on the links to get her new book, The Stall Slayer, and we'll talk more about her why. I always love to ask people, what's your passion, purpose, and your mission? What are you trying to do, but why? What drives you each day? So I always find that interesting, because we all have a story. We all have a story of what we do, why we do it, and what we're trying to get to, what's our direction. And, I think it's important for everyone, whatever profession you're in and whatever you do in life, is to have a purpose and figure that out. So let's bring on Amy. Hey, everyone. I'm excited to have Amy Berger on the show. Once again, we talked to Amy, when were you on the show? Last year, I think, after our low-carb cruise.
Yeah, probably. I know it's been kind of a while.
Yeah, this year is kind of a blur, 2020. As people joke that it's like, look at the years and then this one just kind of cut it out, the history books, because it's all the stuff that we had planned is kind of out the door of all our conferences, right?
Yeah, but it's at the same time, I mean, it feels like such a long year, but then like, oh my goodness, it's August. I can't, and September is right. It's like, it's not even the beginning of August. It's already the middle now. And it's passing so slowly, but also so fast at the same time.
I know, because I look back to March when our craziness started, and then, just looking at August, I'm like, oh yeah, right, September. So kind of crazy. So you've been taking advantage of this time, looks like, by writing a lot. You seem to be, going all to town. You've got a new book we're going to talk about today called The Stall Slayer. You've got another book coming up this fall. Kind of talk about what you've been doing this year.
Oh, well, yeah, a lot of the writing happened earlier on. Lately, the procrastination monster has been sitting on my head and has definitely been taking a toll. But yeah, these books are coming out, and I recently left one of the writing jobs that I had had for about 7 years, and I'm still doing a lot of freelance writing in health and nutrition. I'll just be writing for other, organizations and groups now. So and I want to really kick up my consulting practice. I really haven't been like pushing that very much, and just kind of really focusing more on client work and stuff like that. I kind of want to make a push for that. Not yet. I have some big, other writing projects, but later this fall, definitely that's going to be a bigger focus for me.
So, we're talking in the emailing, but what drives you? I just think, when you have all this content and you keep writing and you want to coach people, what do you think is your driver? What's your why?
Um, I honestly, it took me a long time to figure out what my why was. When I was brand new to all this, I just wanted to teach people about low carb. Hey, guess what? You can lose weight and reverse your type 2 diabetes and reverse your PCOS, and all this great stuff can happen. And you get to eat all this amazing food while you do it. But at this point, things have gotten so crazy in the low carb and keto world. As people are so overwhelmed and confused and just lost.
Mhm.
And now what drives me is helping people see how truly simple this really is.
Mhm.
When you get to the core principles, the things that really make this effective, it is so simple. And you can make it as complicated as you want, but if you really just want to keep things simple, you can still get perfectly good results without spending a fortune and being surrounded by a million different gadgets and 50 different apps. And there's a place for that if people enjoy it, but you don't need all that stuff to do this properly and safely.
Well, I find it is teaching people it's simple, right? It's not the complicated meals, and it's sustainable. It's not
It
a
is
diet.
so simple. Like I'm honestly stunned at
Yeah.
how complicated it's become, or how people have made it seem, rather.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, I always say when I was brand new to this, there was the Atkins book and there was the Protein Power book, and that was it. And that was good enough for that's
Yeah.
really all you needed. And it's all you need now. But people have just, there's a lot of people out there making a lot of money off of this, and leading people to believe, you can't do this without my $400 cleanse and my, and get on auto ship for my greens powder and this and that. And it's just, it's a shame that something so simple and straightforward has become this weird, crazy thing that it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a big frustration to you. That's kind of a big driver, probably similar to me, that's just all the stuff out there. And we're trying to get that message out to what is the truth. And it's hard because there's a lot of people trying to make money and put another book out, another program out, another, you know, product. And it's confusing. It makes it more confusing and overwhelming for people.
Yeah. And I do feel bad because, like, I'm coming out with books, but
Yeah.
I mean, my books, I feel that the whole point of my books is to end the confusion and, keep it simple. Like there's a book out now, I won't name it, but it's something about like keeping it simple or whatever. And or that's the tagline of the book, the simple guide to the dot. The book is 500 pages. Are you kidding me? What kind of author has the gall to say that that's the simplifying it? The book is
Yeah.
500 pages.
Hmm. And I know in nutritional therapy, I've learned years ago that the importance of bioindividuality, that there is not one size fits all. So I always hate to put a label, yes, it's low carb athlete podcast, but I don't put a label on it's carnivore or keto or paleo. It's just, it should be called the real food. Just eat real food that balances your blood sugar so you're burning fat. And we in FDN use metabolic typing. I like to look at DNA fit. I like to look at food sensitivity lab tests, different other like GI map and different labs. But what what are common questions people come to you saying, okay, I can't lose weight. What is wrong? What's happening? I'm trying to do keto because everyone else is losing 20, 30 pounds in a month and I'm not losing weight.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason why I wrote my book, The Stall Slayer. That's the number one reason people write to me for help. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
not losing weight? And there's a lot of different reasons why, but part of it, it's kind of like you were just saying. We put labels on these diets, so when we call something keto, that's where people put their focus. Well, I need to be in ketosis, and then they're buying these things to measure their ketones and take all these measurements and stuff. And they're not putting the focus where it needs to be, which is just keeping their carbohydrate intake really, really low. They're more concerned over, pricking their finger and testing their blood sugar and testing their ketones and drinking MCT oil to get those high ketones. And they're not, it's just a misplaced focus. But I can't blame them. I mean, this is like what they're being told. This is
Yeah.
what's being sold to them, so to speak. This is what other people are making them believe this way of eating is about.
I know it's, you go into right now in our world, we're supposed to stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. And when I keep trying to podcast and share information, what is healthy about? What does it mean to be healthy? And that goes into, nutrition and what we're eating, how we're eating, when we're eating, what we're eating, why we're eating. And I think a lot of it is and a good opportunity for people to learn about, information that you're sharing in your book, what they should eat to lose weight, because we're finding a lot of insulin resistance, obesity, metabolic syndrome, different chronic health concerns are related to people having more of an issue with COVID if they get COVID, correct? I mean, it seems like, a big opportunity right now for people to, while we're kind of dealing with what's going on in the world, to work on nutrition and lose that extra fat weight and balance your blood sugar. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely seems to be the case from what I see in the news, and even, among the medical professionals that I know, that having these sort of underlying issues like type 2 diabetes or hypertension, or, anything related to metabolic syndrome and high insulin, is going to make you more susceptible, meaning you're more likely to contract the virus. And if you do contract the virus, you're going to have a worse prognosis. Like it's going to take you longer to heal. You would be more likely, for example, to end up on a ventilator than someone who starts out a little bit healthier. That doesn't mean that any of this stuff causes the virus. I mean, it's a virus. You catch it or you don't, but
Mm-hmm.
it definitely seems to just make the situation worse. Which is not to say, if you're healthy and active, nobody's immune to this, but you probably are less likely to get it and more likely to recover more quickly and easily if you do get it.
So with your book, The Stall Slayer, what are, maybe some things, sneak peek of the book, things we can share today? Kind of what are some common themes or common questions people have that struggle with losing weight?
Yeah, the number one is probably, I want to say it's the most obvious, but it's not, because people don't realize it's actually just eating too many carbs. Just people eating a little, and it's not intentional. It's not like somebody's waking up and having a bagel and drinking orange juice for breakfast, but it's just these little bits of this and that here and there throughout the day that they add up. And people either are not aware of how much how much carbohydrate is in the little things they're doing, or they're not aware of how often they're doing it. And when you combine that, people are eating a high level of fat as if they were on a very, very low carb ketogenic diet. When they're not, they're kind of on a low-ish carb diet. So then when you're eating fat as if you were very, very low carb, but you're not quite that low carb, that's sort of the metabolic kiss of death. Because now you're still sort of locked into that carbohydrate metabolism, but you're still eating all this fat. Where's that fat going to go? It's got to go somewhere. It's probably going to go in your hips and belly and your back and your thighs and your arms. But again, it's not intentional. I think people just don't realize how quickly those carbs can add up. And some people have a higher carbohydrate tolerance. Not everybody needs to be extremely low, but if you're specifically contacting me because your weight loss is stuck, that's the first thing we look at is, okay, what are you eating?
Do you take into account their activity level, like same us over here, more endurance athletes, or people that do more high intensity training? Does that take into account for their carb consumption, or how do you know if they're eating too
Yeah,
little,
no,
too much?
in general with clients, I take that into account, but I would probably say I don't think anyone who's come to me that's stalled is in that category. Like, I don't think anyone that comes to me stuck in weight loss is an endurance athlete or doing, even something intense regularly.
Mhm.
But I have had clients that do that activity that I think they actually need a little bit more carbohydrate in some cases.
How do you know though? What are some signs that you are eating too low of carbs? Because I think a lot of people struggle with weight loss, not because they're going not low enough, but there's some people, more the athlete, that's going too low. And so they're, or, fasting too much, too frequently, or eating too low carbohydrates for
Yeah.
the activity level. I always find it a little different for people that are exercising a lot compared to the people that are just
Yeah.
metabolically challenged.
Yeah, it's a whole different scenario. This is actually the other book I have coming out later this year with Dr. Eric Westman. That book is definitely a keto book in the sense that it talks about, who can benefit most from keto, how to do keto in a sane and rational way, but it also walks you through how and why to increase your carb intake, like who might be suitable for more carbs, how do you
Yeah.
know, how do you do it systematically so you can eat more carbs but not regain weight you may have lost or re-trigger a health problem to come back. And what I look for is usually, assuming like we were saying, someone is really, really active and they're probably already lean, they're not really trying to lose weight. It's fatigue, depression, kind of like what we would consider overtraining syndrome, just mood, like low mood. You just kind of have lost your oomph, you've lost your mojo, so to speak, just that
Mhm.
sort of blah feeling physically and mentally, emotionally. And sometimes all it takes is like a potato a couple times a week, and it's like somebody flipped a switch and the energy comes back and they feel like training again. So I mean, sometimes in those cases, it can be that an athlete actually starts to gain a little bit of weight, or they just feel really sluggish. They lose their desire and their drive to work out. Usually, a little bit more carbs really helps with all that.
Yeah, I find it interesting, another topic, but just hormones in females and the aging female. That's, I did that complete test and my estrogens are like to the bottom of the barrel and my cortisol is still really low. So I think sometimes people that aren't able to lose fat weight and are doing low carb, there's other signs and symptoms of something else going on that we want to address, looking at collecting clues towards hidden stressors or different hormone imbalances or gut dysbiosis, and all that can contribute to weight loss stalls, I would think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's not really my area of expertise, but those hormonal issues can definitely be a factor. And you do have to look at overtrainings.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, sometimes people just have to accept that they might have to back off a little
Yep.
bit on the training, because that training if you're going to do a certain training volume and a certain frequency and intensity, you have to balance that with eating enough food to power that and resting and recovering enough. And
Yeah.
if we don't respect the body's need for that balance, those hormones will show you who's boss. So
Uh-huh.
it's the nutrition piece, but it's also the physical piece. The body can only take so much before it's going to start shutting down, whether you want it to or not.
Yep. I know. I just wrote a blog that the other day. It's like, all right, when you need to not do long distance running and just do run walk and do shorter workouts. In my past life, I would never do a 30-minute run. It's like
Hmm.
30, 45 minutes as an endurance athlete. Who does that? And now it's like my mindset's so different. My body's different, that I I need to do shorter workouts and more intervals rather than, these 2-hour long runs during the week. And then my really long run, 2-3 hours on Sundays. And when you're training for Ironman or 50K runs that, it's so different that how do you know you're causing more harm in your body when you put that with a low carb diet and fasting too much. So I know it's a different topic, but I just think, something I'm looking at getting into a little more this year is looking at for athletes, when are you too low carb? When are you fasting too much? And how do you know when you're overdoing it?
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
think
because here's the thing, obviously athletes can thrive on very low carb diets,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean if somebody's not thriving that they're doing something wrong. Their body or their style of training might just, they might do better with a little, and we're not talking about 200 or 300 grams of carbs. We're talking about a little more starch, a little more to power yourself. But I see this even among just sort of like mere mortals who aren't training for these kind of events. People are taking advice that isn't really intended for them. Keto is so powerful and it's so effective as a medical therapy for diabetes, obesity, heart disease, hypertension, whatever. If you're healthy and lean and fit and active, those conditions don't describe you, and you might not need a ketogenic diet. Keto is not the only way to be healthy. And I feel like there's just people out there taking, we've made people afraid of carbs. We've made people afraid of anything that isn't keto. We've made people afraid of not fasting. We've made people afraid of eating 3 meals a day. And it's unfortunate because all of that advice is really, really great for some people. But, populations that it's not really intended for are trying to implement it, and they're running into problems because of it, I think.
Is that, with your book, is that kind of targeting more just the general population, that normal people struggle with that weight loss and not having the ability to just drop that 20 pounds that this guy did down this, on your social media post said, I lost all this weight. I did strict carnivore, or I did, keto, 20 grams of carbs a day, and I just dropped all this weight. And then someone else tries to do it and copy a same program and realize, it's not working for me. What's wrong? Is that what you get a lot of questions on?
If I understand you correctly, yeah, that's what the Stall Slayer is about.
Yeah.
That's just for the general population
Normal
with
people.
fat loss. Yeah. Yeah. The athletes, I mean, endurance athletes really are a very different sort of category. If they're not losing fat, and they might have some of the same issues. They might be eating too many carbs or too much fat, or their, thyroid could be an issue, but they also have other things to look at that maybe the general public doesn't really.
I know. So do you have, questions and help people with fasting? I know that's always a big topic. People trying to lose weight. Do you promote intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding, eating?
That's a really touchy subject, right? It's so controversial because, again, I think fasting is obviously very therapeutic for a lot of different things, and it can, physically and psychologically, I think there's a lot of merits to it and benefits to it, but I see people taking it too far. I see people, people will write to me almost confessing, like confessing a sin, like, well, I'm trying to do 16/8, but I can only make it 14 hours, or I'm trying to do 20 hours and, only eating for 4, but I had to eat at such and such a clock. And I'm like, I'm not your priest. This isn't the confessional. Like, eating food when you're hungry is not a sin you need to confess to. Like, and so, fasting, like anything else, like keto itself, or like endurance exercise, just because some is good doesn't mean more is better. Not everybody requires it. So I mean, I just see people, it's such a touchy subject. I don't want anyone listening to get the wrong idea. Like any tool, it depends on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. I do think there are some people fasting who should not be, and fasting too much, but it also depends on how we define fasting. If I don't really like long-term fasting at all, but if we're just talking about skipping a meal or two, or only eating 1 or 2 meals a day, if you're doing that because you're just not hungry, to me, that's not fasting. That's just eating when you're hungry and not eating when you're not hungry, which is what we should all be doing.
Yeah.
If you're only hungry for 1 or 2 meals a day, great. fasting to me implies deliberately withholding food when you are actually hungry. And I don't think, I mean, this is your sort of expertise, not mine. I don't think an endurance athlete should be doing that. If you're like, and I'm not saying when you're having a sugar craving, but when you are genuinely, legitimately hungry, you should probably eat.
Well, that's what you talk about, right? Intuitive. It's listening to your body is what I keep trying to tell people and write about, is that we should be listening to what our body needs, what our body feels like, and when we should eat, because if we avoid those flags, those signals we get from our body, are we putting ourselves in more stress than benefiting it? Like you just said, if I'm hungry, but I'm like, oh, it's after 7 o'clock, I can't eat anything because that's my start of my intermittent fast overnight, that I am just going to not eat anything. But then I'm afraid, for someone that would cause a stressor if they're like, okay, my body needs something. So it's, when you override those signals, I think we forget to learn how to listen to what our body's telling us.
Exactly, exactly. But I think psychologically, I like the idea of going a little longer between meals or skipping a meal now and then, because
Mm-hmm.
in our society, it's a blessing and a curse that we're
Yeah.
surrounded by food all the time, right? And so I think it's a good thing to train your body and your brain to be okay with being hungry now and then. Like
Yes.
the second we feel a hunger pang, we're reaching for a snack. And so
Yeah.
in that sense, quote unquote, intermittent fasting is good, I think, just to remind ourselves like, oh, I'm not actually going to die if I don't put something in my mouth the first second I start to feel a little hungry, you know? So it has its good points and its bad points, like anything. It's very good, but it can be taken to a bad point where it starts working against you.
It sounds like that's kind of relates to hormetic stressors that if we're cold, we put on clothes, we get the heater on. If we're hot, we put on the air conditioner. And then if we're, feel like we need to eat or there's food there, we eat. So never listening to, letting our body adapt and let your body burn the fat it has stored up in there. So when you have periods of time that you don't have food available, as we once did, that you learn how to do that. But it is that fine line, like, okay, when is it an eating disorder or, getting too obsessed, or when is it just natural? It's unintentional fasting, I find. And what I say is like, oh, I didn't eat all that because, oh, I wasn't even hungry because I ate those, 2 hard-boiled eggs and some chicken this morning, and I'm not even full. I have no appetite. So I'm not intentionally not eating till whenever I'm hungry and have 2 meals a day. I don't even realize it. It just ends up that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. Like if eat when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not hungry. And it is hard, but it's so easy to say it. It is really hard to do because we are surrounded by food, and it's natural to sort of think you're hungry when you see food or you smell food, even if you're not.
Yeah.
It is, I think, difficult to distinguish, am I actually hungry or am I just wanting to eat? Am I just wanting to put something in my hand or my mouth?
It's funny because, I was telling you, we're in this Airbnb 1-bedroom little apartment house above in like a garage. Actually, it was where we're living on this estate in the mountains. And my husband, we tried to make office because we're here for 2 months. So the kitchen has this shelving area that had a microwave. We took out the microwave, redid the shelving, and that's where his computer is for his stand-up desk.
Hmm.
But behind him is the pantry, and around the corner is the refrigerator. So we always laugh. It's like, okay, are you eating because you're hungry or because it's like right literally behind your back? You just snack or
Yeah.
eat something. So I find it easier just to buy food in your house that is for meals. It's not for snacking, mindless snacking, but eat mindfully and make full satiating meals that you don't have to snack in between, and you lose those cravings because you ate the right type of combination of food for your body, sat down, relaxed, focused, chewed your food, digested your food properly, and then you're like, oh, I'm not hungry. But
Yeah.
if you do that, it seems like it's a totally different.
I've gotten, sometimes I snack now and then, but I prefer, and this is kind of what I tell my clients, is just what you said. You can start to feel, I'm a little snacky, I'm a little hungry, but I can wait. Like I can wait an hour and I won't die. I could even wait 2 hours. So what I'll do, instead of just reaching for a little snack, I'll wait that hour or two and then I'll just have a meal. I'll just have a full amount of food. I think that's almost more satisfying, because if you snack, you're probably still going to have the meal anyway, and then you're just eating probably more than you actually need.
Yeah. And you're not even hungry by the time you sit down for that meal. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I just ruined my appetite. So I know one thing is digestion. And, I say pause, stop, pause, reset, and take 3 deep breaths in and out and help kind of shift to that parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system before you start wolfing down your food. So again, it's mindfully versus mindlessly eating. Do you find that an area of opportunity for your clients, and kind of maybe what you talk about in your book, if that's an issue, people not digesting their food properly, and especially eating a higher fat diet, they're not able to digest fats correctly?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't address that in the Stall Slayer, and it's not really in the other book, but that's kind of outside the scope. I don't think that would interfere with fat loss, but you could have, like you were saying, just like bloating, gas, feeling not overly full, but like feeling like it's just kind of staying in your stomach and it's not
Yeah.
really moving, just being physically uncomfortable. Yeah, I think we're just, maybe it's less so because of the virus now, but so many people eat in their car, they eat standing up at work, and just, it's not a good scene to be eating that way. If you have to, you have to, but, you know, um, that's something that I think Europe has always done
Hmm.
better than we have. They just have such a
Yes.
beautiful food culture. And I think it's changing. Unfortunately, they're starting to take after us more and more, like
Hmm.
eating at work in front of their computers at their desks, instead of just taking an hour or two to enjoy the meal, sit down with friends and really just kind of relax while they eat.
I always say that, to clients when I coach them when they eat, sit, take 3 deep breaths in and out, pause, and eat like you're in Italy. When you're on vacation or you go to, Italy or France or anywhere in Europe, I think they have this lunch. I know when we've gone to Europe and we, love traveling, and you'd have to actually ask for the bill and say, I want to leave, because they just let you be, just be there for 2 hours if you want. Just like, okay,
Right.
we're already done. We ate in 10 minutes and everyone else is still eating and ordering a course, and c'est la vie.
Yeah, so
So
they just have a very different love of food over there.
the sad thing lately, I've noticed being in North San Diego now, In-N-Out Burger and like McDonald's, the drive-through, I just see the lineup for In-N-Out Burger, like 10, 20 cars every time we go by this one on the freeway. I'm like, oh, people are still lined up. So I think a lot of people are not able to eat out of restaurants and they're getting to go food, and they might be tending to get more fast food, processed foods, and quick and easy stuff versus eating real food, and taking this time to learn how to cook your food at home and really, learn how to cook again.
Yeah, cooking is it's one of those things, kind of like low carb and keto itself. It's so simple, and people think it's really complicated, right? You can really, I mean, I have a ton of different pots and pans and baking dishes and all this stuff, and I find myself reaching for really like the same two pots and pans over and over and over
Hmm.
again, right? Like you've got those one or two favorites that they're your workhorses that you use all the time. So it's nice that I have the other stuff for the rare occasions when I need it or I want it, but I could survive with two or three, different size, like a good heavy skillet, one nice, large pot, and you can just put a pork chop in a Pyrex dish and bake it for 30 minutes and dinner's done. I think people just don't realize how simple cooking is. But it's easy for me to say because I've always enjoyed it too. There's some people that simply just don't like it. So it's people could be cooking a lot more of their own food, and that's, of course, that makes it so much easier to stick to low carb or keto or whatever somebody's doing, just because you always you know what's in your food, you made it
Yeah.
yourself. You can cook a ton of it. Like I tell people, make this easy for yourself. Always have something in the fridge ready to go. Like never grill one steak. If you're going to grill a steak anyway, why not grill 5 steaks? And you can eat one for dinner, cut one up into strips the next day and eat it cold for lunch, dip it in guacamole, dip it in ranch dressing or something. um, do that with chicken, do it with pork. Like just, if you're going to boil 2 eggs, boil 2 dozen eggs,
Hmm.
and like, so Cooking doesn't really have to be, it can be very simple and easy.
I've been trying to share my husband is a really good cook and will whip stuff up, and he's been getting stir crazy not cooking for people, especially being here. So he's been last few days just trying to whip up these fancy meals. But I am simple, and I keep posting when I think about it. I usually don't on my cell phone when I'm eating, but I take a picture when I think about it and post it on my Instagram to show, here it is, some grilled vegetables, roasted vegetables, something vegetable with the protein, and I put some grass-fed butter on it. And what I love this time of year, I think everyone has farmers markets, and go to a farmers market and get that local fresh stuff. I found some grass-fed raw butter and some, raw goat cheeses, and of course, vegetables, but microgreens, those broccoli sprouts and little things like that are so delicious to add in and so simple. And that's my goal, is to teach people, eating this way is simple, as we talked about earlier, but I think it's a good time of year to experiment. And barbecuing, I was going to throw in too, of, barbecuing, like you said, make extra. We cooked barbecued steak and chicken, tastes amazing. And I love it sliced up cold and then put it on your meal the next day. I think that's the easy trick.
You can have it in a salad. You can even make an omelet or a frittata out of it. Like leftover meat never goes to waste as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's always something to do with it.
We've been doing Taco Tuesdays without the taco tortilla. Well, my husband does. We found these different gluten-free ones, corn or sweet potato and all these different kinds, but I'd rather just have it, with guacamole and some sprouts or lettuce, and get that leftover steak cut up. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I want to get back to your book. I keep blabbing, but the stall slayer, what are some other ways to break that fat loss stall that we can talk about? We talked about the first one, and that was, of course, not eating the right amount of carbohydrates for your body. So going lower enough and experimenting with that. What about a couple others we can give people little tips to go read more in your book?
Another biggie that I see is overdoing fat. And this, your community being so active and literally just burning so much energy all day, your clients, probably some of them do really well with a lot of fat in their diet. The people that I see, it's, people hear, they hear keto, so they think it has to be high fat, when what truly defines the ketogenic diet is the very, very low carb aspect of it. And so people think that they're supposed to eat a certain percentage of fat, or I have to hit my fat macro, and I have to, I have to put oil on everything and butter on everything. And to be clear, that works for some people, right? Some people do really well with that. But when someone's specifically reaching out to me because they're having trouble losing weight, and I always tell people, okay, walk me through a few days of what you typically eat. And there's a lot of the very fatty coffees, and people, even if they're not doing maybe like butter and oil in the coffee, they just don't realize quite how much heavy cream they're putting in, and the cheese and the nuts. And so, keto is a high fat diet, but high fat relative to what? High fat doesn't have to mean 80% fat. A 60% fat diet is still pretty high in fat. So I see that, people don't realize that just because you're eating very low carb, doesn't mean you can have unlimited fat. If somebody's brand new to this way of eating, I don't have them worry about anything except keeping the carbs low. Like I don't have them control fat. I don't have them worry about any of that until or unless they get to a point where it's not working. And then we say, okay, well, how much butter are you putting on everything? How much cheese are you using? So, and it's rough because fat is delicious, right? There's a reason we all kind of have portion control problems with nuts and cheese and stuff like that. It's because it's delicious. Mm-hmm. But some of us add it just because it is delicious and it tastes so good, not because we're necessarily hungry. Some people will eat a lot of extra fat because, oh, well, it was 9 o'clock at night, but I still had 30 more grams of fat to go. Like, okay, that's not how this works,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's finding that right balance for you. If it's, do you ever look at the metabolic typing? I've learned about the slow oxidizer, fast oxidizer. And
I have not gotten into that yet. I would love, I think last time we talked a little bit about it.
Oh yeah, we did.
I'm not so educated on that.
I just find it interesting because I was trying to write this article of, when actually it was kind of what your book is on. It was just a short article I was asked to write on eat this, not that, when what you're eating is, not, you can't lose weight. So they're selling weight loss, which is funny because that was yesterday. I got the request to write this little article and I was thinking, well, a lot of it is, people not listening to your body, as I said, but like if I eat too many carbs, fat, protein, it's so different for me. I can't eat a lot of carbs because I'll still want to eat. So I know how to listen to my body and go, okay, I need to drop that even a little bit lower. And for me, I can do a little more protein. But I know a lot of
Hmm.
people are confused about the protein issue because people like Dr. Gabrielle Leon is talking about, eating high protein. Say your body weight goal is 150 pounds, you want to eat 150 grams of protein a day. But then there's a confusion of, well, if I eat too much protein, that's converted into carbohydrates, glucose via gluconeogenesis. So what kind of your thoughts on the protein? You just said too high fat, but what about, or too high carbs and too much fat, I guess he said. But what about the protein part? Is so, the carnivore community versus keto carnivore, paleo, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I am very much in the camp of do what works for you, but if I had to pick a side, I lean toward the higher protein side. I mean, specifically for somebody that's having a hard time losing weight. Because again, I would take the emphasis off the ketogenic aspect. If somebody's worried, well, I noticed when I eat more protein, my ketones are lower or it kicks me out of ketosis, forget about ketosis. Ketosis does not cause weight loss. All ketosis tells you is that you're burning fat. It doesn't tell you whether you're burning your own stored body fat or whether you're burning the cheese and the butter and the cream and the oil. So if eating more protein lowers your ketone levels, I would not worry about that at all, unless you are somebody who needs a medical ketogenic diet and you require high ketone levels to fix whatever problem you're trying to fix. Most people who are just doing low carb keto to lose weight, that's not the case. So I do think the fear about protein, being converted into glucose or kicking you out of ketosis is why people kind of skimp on protein and eat more fat instead, when they would probably be better served by not worrying about ketones and eat more protein. And it's this gluconeogenesis. Some amino acids from protein can be converted into glucose, but it doesn't happen just because you eat a lot of protein. Because look, fat, the glycerol portion of the fat molecule, not to geek out or anything, but that portion of a fat molecule can also be converted to glucose, but you never hear anybody worried about that when they're putting MCT oil in their coffee. You never hear people worried about that when they're putting butter on their steak. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so what are we worried about? Like, I'm not in the protein fear mongering camp at all. In fact, for most women especially,
Yeah.
do not eat anywhere near enough protein, because we were brainwashed in the 80s and 90s that your protein portion should be no larger than a deck of cards or no larger than the palm of your hand. Forget that, ladies. It is nonsense. It is nonsense.
Yeah, we've talked a few times about Dr. Stacy Sims' book Roar and how, women are not small men. So it's kind of
Yeah.
that, and what Dr. Gabby Leon talks about is, especially as we age, we need to have more protein and have more strength training, and so important. I think
Yeah.
women as they get older don't understand the importance of it. But I
No,
think
and I
it's
think it's cultural too, for putting aside the fear that we have in the keto world of like, well, it is gonna kick me out of
yeah.
ketosis or turn into glucose. Societally, like culturally, we have this thing where it's unladylike to sit down to this big honkin' ribeye steak, right? Or like it's unladylike to eat a big chicken thigh with the skin on it. Like, get over that. It's not unladylike.
Well, after the low carb cruise last year with you guys, I totally converted me. So it's been a year of, focusing on eating more meat. It's
And
crazy, but it
how
works.
is it going? Like, how do you feel and how are things going?
I did a podcast with, do you know Karan of Microbiome Labs?
I don't think so.
He's like microbiome expert,
What's his
but
name?
Karan, I don't know his last name,
Yeah, I don't
actually,
know.
forget, but he's a microbiome expert around the world and he does Megaspore biotic supplement and microbiome labs. Anyways, we did my microbiome test and I was, eating more protein, but I wasn't eating as many vegetables, but now my microbiome actually is needing to feed kind of my bacteria. I need more vegetables. So it's interesting, kind of tweaking what my body needs based on my microbiome results, because I was not eating enough vegetables, just eating more protein. So I think it's that individualization.
Mhm.
I do want to get back to what you said. I think it's a big, huge point that our goal is to burn fat, and that you don't need to be in strict ketosis, because people are fixed, as you said, on those numbers. And I would think that would be a weight loss stall, that people are fixed on the numbers and not really looking at the big picture. If they're trying to lose weight, let's focus on how we can burn stored body fat, not those ketones circulating your blood because you just had that MCT oil supplement or drink. And that seems to me what you're teaching people how to burn stored body fat, not be in strict ketosis. And who needs to be in strict ketosis is more the people with chronic health issues that need to be in more that state of ketosis, showing ketones each day.
Yep, agreed.
So for them to burn stored body fat, your main thing is to say, experiment with the carbohydrate intake. But how do you know if you're burning stored body fat? It shows on the scale. Do you do body fat percentage test? How do you know?
I guess it depends on how much weight you're looking to lose. If you are very, very overweight, then when your weight is going down, you're probably losing body fat, because it's not going to be it'll be water for the first day or two. Then once you've been doing keto for a few weeks and months, you are losing fat. And the question would only be, are you losing muscle along with that fat? And if so, how much? And for most people, they don't really lose muscle as long as they're eating enough protein, or what was I going to say? If they do lose muscle, because I think it's somewhat expected, quote unquote, that you always will lose a little bit of muscle mass on a weight loss diet. Like, it won't be 100% fat that you lose, but you lose a lot less muscle on a lower carb diet than you do on a higher carb diet. But I think eating adequate protein is key for that. But yeah, if you have the access to something like a DEXA scan or some type of other way to measure body fat that you think is reliable, that's one way you could do it. But if you're looking to lose 70 or 100 pounds, you could probably trust the scale for most of that.
And I think, I don't know if Eric Westman or Dr. Barry on the cruise were talking about not saying weight loss, but fat loss. And I was, since then, I've always corrected myself. It's not weight loss. We want fat loss.
Yeah, no, it's such a critical point for women, because women want to see the scale go down. But guess what? If you lose muscle, you will be very, very sorry 5 years later.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. What we talk about, or what I try to talk about a lot in the show and my blogs, is, lift heavy weights, get strength training in, because it's that balance of anabolic versus catabolic, especially as we age and our hormones change, that, endurance athletes are breaking down their body, increasing that cortisol, which is, breaking down. We want to balance with building up. So doing more strength training, eating more protein, having your aminos is so important, I find.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have? You have some conferences, of course, everything's virtual, but you've got the Low-Carb USA conference coming up, which this will be out right when that happens, but that's online. I was so excited to go to that because I finally, living near San Diego.
Oh yeah. And I was I have never been to San Diego, but I've only ever heard good things, and I was finally about to see it, but not so much this year.
Well, Amy, I've got our new house, hopefully we're getting today, we're going to make a beautiful guest suite with king size bed and sofa.
Ooh.
And then we have this beautiful hilltop sanctuary with this glass house and pergola, and it has a view of Lake Hodges and Elfin Forest. So anyone can start making their reservations when they're able to travel.
That sounds like paradise.
17 miles from Del Mar, Encinitas. So
wow.
Got the mountains, got hiking, got amazing area, and then we've got the ocean. So you can come stay next year anytime.
It's a date.
Yeah. So anyways, you've got that, and then you've got, I didn't know, Maria and Craig Emmerich, who are like overachievers, a conference themselves. So they've got Keto Adapted virtual conference coming up, and you're on that conference. So you're busy.
Yeah, I think that's it for the rest of the year so far, though. I think. And
We have FDN practitioner they're doing a conference. So far it's live in San Diego in October.
Oh,
So
really?
if you want, we can get you speaking there if you want. I
Huh.
can talk to my people. But
Wow.
there's hope someday that we'll have everything in person again.
I think sometime next year things will open back up. I don't know how. I'm not in a hurry to get on a plane anytime soon, but if it was someplace I could drive to, I would probably attend something in person now if it was something I could drive to. But
Mhm.
there's not really anything going on. So
So not to get into that subject, but do you have any recommendations for people what to do now to stay healthy and improve their immune system and build resiliency?
I mean, I think that's a long-term project, I think.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe in like, oh, just take some vitamin C or take
Mhm.
some, whatever, like quercetin or something. I think, like we were talking about before, just being healthy reduces risk for this, or reduces the risk of a poor outcome if you do get it. And so if you are living with chronically high blood sugar, chronically high insulin, if you have PCOS, heart disease, all this stuff, just start making those strides now toward cutting your carb intake and getting more active, getting some fresh air and sunlight. Even with this virus, I mean, I am definitely not an endurance athlete, but I go for very long walks every day, and I don't want anyone to like hate me now. I don't wear a mask because I go on a very nice trail,
Mhm.
and it's pretty distanced anyway. I mean, I do pass people here and there, but we're outdoors. My mouth is shut the entire time. Like, I'm not talking to people. I'm not singing, I am exhaling through my nose, which maybe is no better. I don't really know, but I'm in contact, so to speak, several feet apart from people, passing over the course of 1 or 2 seconds. And it's my understanding that part of the risk of infection too is the level of exposure. That's why so many seemingly healthy medical professionals and healthcare workers are getting sick, just because the amount of time that they spend around the infected people.
Mhm.
It's the level of exposure, the degree of exposure. So I'm not saying I feel immune on any level, but I think getting fresh air and sunlight, apart from the vitamin D is a big issue, but apart from that, I think just getting fresh air is a
Mhm.
huge thing for health overall. And I'm not an immunology expert, so nobody take this to be the gospel or anything, but I feel like, when you look at pictures of hospitals or convalescent homes from like a century ago, they would roll patients' beds outside
Hmm.
specifically to give them fresh air and sunlight. They would prescribe people to go get some ocean air, like go spend a weekend at the sea. This was literally medicine 100 years ago. And I like, we've made a lot of advances since then, but maybe they knew a thing or two back then that we, would do well to remember.
Yeah, my parents are 78, 79 years old, and my dad has heart disease, had lung issues last few years with his heart. Related to his heart, my mom has some non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And so they're totally, they're at risk. And I can't, they're typical normal person, I guess. They're going to eat Costco prepared foods. They have their non-fat milk and their orange
Mm,
juice, and they drink alcohol every day. And they, fortunately though, the positive is that they get outside. They're stuck in Palm Desert because they just moved there full time in February, but they were supposed to leave in the summer and they can't leave. And, but they get outside and they're in their pool and they're playing and having fun while they,
mhm.
as much as they can. But it's hard to get people, especially that at-risk category, to change how they eat and how much
Yeah.
alcohol they consume and little
Yeah, and
exercise
those
to get.
changes, I think overall, some of those changes can take a long time. But with the blood sugar and the blood
Mhm.
pressure, those things can change in days. If you really cut carbs, literally your blood pressure and your blood sugar can improve in days. So some of this really can be improved really quickly.
Yeah. So I know we're running out of time, but it's always fun to chat with you. I know a lot of people, hopefully listening, are taking ownership of their health because this is a choice. You have a choice what to eat. It does obviously cost a little more money to get organic local foods, but you are what you eat and you are what you are able to digest and absorb. And we're talking about how you can burn body fat and keep yourself healthy. So Amy always has tons of great information, and your blog and your YouTube and Twitter? What are you on? Kind of what's your main source of communicating with the world?
Probably Twitter and YouTube. So my handle on both of those is Tuit Nutrition. That's my YouTube channel name, TUIT, Tuit Nutrition. And yeah, I have an Instagram account. I don't really understand Instagram. I'm an old fogey. I need someone I need like my 8-year-old niece to teach
Yeah.
me how to use Instagram. But yeah, so you people can follow me there, but don't expect a whole lot of posts.
I know. I feel like most people, as yourself and other, leading nutritionists and doctors and functional medicine people are on Twitter, but I can't do both. I've been trying to choose one. I've been choosing Instagram and just forward it to my Facebook page, but it's hard to, be all over the place because that's a source of chronic stress to me.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. You definitely have to pick which ones you're going to focus on.
Yeah. Too much of anything is not good for you. So thanks so much. And we'll put the links in the show notes for your book. And then do you have a date, kind of estimate date for the one with Dr. Eric Westman?
I think it's sometime December 2020. I don't know if we have an exact date, but sometime in December.
Okay. And then the title is?
It's called End Your Carb Confusion. And you can actually pre-order it now on Amazon. We don't have the cover of the book yet, so there's no picture there for the cover. But if you look for End Your Carb Confusion on Amazon, it should come up.
Perfect. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes to make sure everyone go down and to look at what notes we have from Amy and links, and you can stay healthy and stay educated and make those right choices. So thanks, Amy.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great day.